My first experience of weaving was making a basket at a festival in the pouring rain, where everyone else had run for cover. I was so absorbed in what I was doing, I didn't really notice, and was hooked from that point onwards. And much to my surprise, found I could make animals quite well out of sticks. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm a willow weaver from Kent and I run Trotterscliffe Willow. I make any kind of animal. Probably my most popular makes are woodland animals, such as deer, badgers, foxes, pigs, sheep, chickens. Today I'm going to be making a sitting hare. They're one of the most popular animals for people to buy, and they're easily doable in a day. I source all my willow from the Somerset levels, and then when I'm ready to use it, it needs to be soaked. It needs to be soaked for a day per foot of willow. After it's soaked, I then leave it to mellow overnight, which means you take it out of the water and leave it just to dry off on the surface, and the moisture goes right into the core, and then that makes it pliable enough to use. So to make our hare today, we're going to be using some 4-foot Dicky Meadow rods, and we're also going to be using a pair of good secateurs. I may also need to use my bodkin. I've got a small pair of pliers, some string and scissors. I also have a length of steel rod that I'm going to be putting into the front legs of the hare, and some good old bolt croppers to trim that down as well. To start off making our hare, we're going to make a ring. So with your first stick, and you're going to have both ends away from you, and cross one over the top of the other. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold the join with my left hand, and with my right hand, tuck that tip under to form a really basic knot. But of course that's far too weak, so we're going to add another rod to it. I've got a double layer of weave this side and just a single layer here. So I want to start with my new butt end along that thinner area first. Hold it with my left hand with the fingers to the floor and start to weave. Don't work up close because it will kink. Imagine you have needle and thread and do some nice big sewing movements. That's still far too squashy, so we're going to add in another rod. Now this is the skeleton of your hare, so none of it is going to be seen. It doesn't need to be beautiful. This is about strength, not beauty. And that is now the first stage of your hare completed. Our second stage is to make another ring, exactly the same as our first one. So now I have my two rings that are more or less the same size. So now each one I'm going to squash at one end to make into a teardrop shape. So I get my thumbs in and push against and give it a good squash. And then we're going to do the same for the second one and give that a squash into a teardrop shape. And we need to now make them into our 3D shape. So one goes inside the other. It doesn't matter which way round you put them. So that you can see now is the start of your body. Now when you're beginning as a weaver, it's much easier to use some ties, some wire to hold this in place. But I'm going to use willow today. But I'm going to wrap a little bit of willow round. I'm going to repeat wrapping round at the bottom to hold the other end in place. So our third step is to make another ring, which is going to go in the opposite plane on the inside of this, and this is what's going to hold your body shape. So it's exactly the same process again. So I'm going to place the new ring inside my outside framework and attach at all 4 points. And then I'm going to use Willow this time to wrap round to hold that ring in place. So that's now secured. So we have the start of our skeleton. And you can feel now that it's really, really quite strong. At this stage here, I have a bit of a trim up. Any of these wispy bits though, they can stay because they'll get incorporated into the next stage. So our next stage is going to be to fill in our framework. This stage is probably the most important thing to get right. So to start with, we're going to open up a piece of our framework with our fingers and pop the butt of a new one in. I hold where it's poked through with my left hand and immediately double back with the rod and bring it all the way through. So you're thinking about really zigzagging in and out through your framework. When you get to your tip end, open up somewhere in your framework, poke it through, tuck it into the middle, and that's your first one done. And this is the process that you're going to carry on until the inside of your body is filled in and you can't really see too much through. So now we're going to add in a basic framework for our head. So get a new butt and pop it in by your framework at the back of the body, so that's your back. Then you're going to come over the top of your anchor point and in through it somewhere. And we're going to make a very basic head shape. And then with what you have left, start to weave into that shape. And our aim now is to fill this in so it's nice and solid 2D before we start to think about giving him or her cheeks. So to do that, each time start with the butt somewhere in the body, come a little bit up that anchor point, and then with what you have left, carry on your same random free weaving that you've been doing all the time up till now. So now we've got a nice solid head shape. It's nicely filled in and strong. We now want to think about making it 3D. So a very simple way to get your face 3D is to get the butt of a rod and pop it in to the back of the head at 90 degrees to the face. Bring it round to the front of the nose, pull it through, but don't pull it through too tight because you want to have enough to give you a nice rounded cheek. Double back with it and come in somewhere at the back of the head again. With what you have left, you can bring it round and work over the surface now. So it's a good and quick way of building up your cheeks. You're going to carry on now with your random weave, same as you've done all the way through, over the surface of the head to really fill it in and get that shape. When you're weaving, your animal can take on a form of a different animal that you don't intend to make. Quite often these look like penguins. Well, to my mind, our hair looks a bit like a meerkat at the moment, but we're not going to worry about that at all. He's not going to stay that way. What we're going to do now is add in the ears, because then you can really see your hair starting to take shape. So getting a reasonably strong rod from your selection. So you're going to pop it in to your hare's head. Now, if your head is quite tight, this is where you can use your bodkin to open up a space. And then you take the tip and come in between half an inch and an inch behind the upright and pull it through. And then the amount that you pull it through dictates the height of your ear. Once you've got your first bit of your framework in for your ear, reinforce it with at least another one, if not two. Where your tip of your original piece of ear went in, now place a butt of a second one and weave up around it like you did the rings in the first place to reinforce it. When you're putting your second ear in, put your second ear in at a different angle to your first one. So now we're going to fill in the ears, which is essentially the same weave yet again. Cut a new rod to a point and pop it in somewhere into the head, and then we're going to weave into your ear. The best way to do it, stick your butt in, come to one side of the ear and weave all the way around it to hold it. Then come diagonally across to the other edge of the ear, wind all the way around it and back up across. And that way it holds it open. Once you've got your framework built with your ears, then just revert back to normal random weave. Okay, so our hare now has his ears on and really starting to take shape. So our next stage is going to be to put his legs on. So to do this, this is where we're going to use our steel rod just to give him a little bit of support. So just putting the hair down for a moment, I'm going to bend the steel rod. Steel rod can be found online or any outdoor kind of hardware store. And I'm going to bend that roughly in half. I'm going to feed it now through the hare's body. Now this can be trial and error. It doesn't mean you necessarily get them in the right place first time of asking. These are far too long, so we want to trim them off. And there, now he sits lovely. Our next stage now is going to add some willow to the steel rod legs. What you really want to be doing for these front ones is getting some butts. Measure it really, so at least that sort of length off of the end, and I'm going to use those to feed through. So grabbing a rod and feed it up somewhere in the vicinity of the steel rod, and so it's about the same length. We really want at least 12 on this leg just to add some bulk. So we now have 12 rods along this leg, and that looks the right thickness to me. So I'm just going to trim off so they're the same length as the steel rod, because we just want to temporarily tie all of that together. So we've now got our 4 rods sticking up in the air. We're going to feed these into the body. So we're going to secure it in place by weaving those 4 anywhere into the body. So now we move on to the other side and we're going to do exactly the same. Okay, so we've now got the front legs on, and now we're going to get the back legs on to match. So whatever number of rods you put on the front legs, you're going to do on the back legs as well. Now the first one needs to go in really very low down in the bottom of your hair. So I'm happy with that positioning, but I'm going to leave this too long and we'll trim that later. So now I'm going to add another 11. So that's the 12th one in. Tie them probably about halfway between the front leg and his bottom. And then we're going to weave in all of these into our hare's body. So I'm going to do this for all of them, apart from the lowest 3. I've fed in the 9 rods now and left 3 remaining. And what I'm going to do with these 3 is fold them round to give just a little illusion of a haunch. So I've finished making this little haunch here now, which is the 3 rods wrapped around each other. And now I'm going to trim his back legs just behind his front leg. At this stage here, this leg is hanging down a little bit too low. We will tie it up later, but for now that's absolutely fine. And we're going to move on and repeat on the other side for the other back leg. So once your 4 legs are on, we're now going to wrap your legs. So I find the easiest way to do this is to tip him upside down and hold quite nice and firmly to the leg and remove your string. So with your new weaving rod, tip up towards the shoulder and hang on to it with your thumb, and then start to wrap round as tightly as you can, making sure you snare over the tip of the one that you're wrapping with. And then I wrap round tightly. When you've got a little bit left, just pop it up into the body to secure it, and then start again with a new one. All the way up to the top, and then when you're at the top, weave whatever you've got left into the body, and then repeat on the next 3 legs. Okay, so that's his legs all wrapped now. So our final stage is to add his tail. Now, hares have very triangular tails, they're not little fluffy bunny tails. So cut the butt end of a rod and pop it in one side of his haunch, and then make a triangle of whatever size that you want, and come in with the tip in the similar place on the opposite leg and weave it through. And now I'm going to weave the rest of that in to wherever I want it to go, really. Just going to do a little bit of infill, not very much at all. I'm going to start by popping a butt into his bottom and just a little bit of random weave, a few crisscrosses into that tail. I'm going to pop him down to make sure he sits properly, and there we go. That's his little tail at the back there. And there he is, our hare is completed. Let's find him a home. If you'd like to stand a chance of winning this hare, please subscribe to the channel, like this video and comment hare. If you'd like to find out more about workshops that I run in Kent and Hertfordshire, please have a look at my website, trotterscliffwillow.co.uk, and all the details are on there.